we really decode karma and understand its true nature?
Broadly, we can look at karma conveying four important meanings.
In fact, they say karma is like a revenge. But then I also see a group of people who say we do not believe in karma.
I may or may not understand it, I may or may not believe it, but the law of karma governs the lives of every living entity and it is inescapable.
What do you have to say when they say everything is predestined, completely contradicting to the law of karma?
We are no doubt makers of our destiny. Now, we are also not masters of our destiny. It is all about a paradigm shift, a shift in our focus on what we can control, what we can change, and what we cannot control, what we cannot change.
And most importantly, when it comes to getting angry or frustrated or, you know what I mean? So if because that person got angry, I had to get angry. I mean, it
And
was
the
your
one who
senior.
triggers you happens to be your spouse, then keep counting.
How does one get a control of the cycle? Where is where one feels freedom? Let's talk about that.
Unless and until we recognize this cycle of karma at play, which is governing our lives, unless we break this vicious cycle, we cannot experience true freedom.
Is how knowing the law of karma yoga, will help them in modern life.
Krishna in the Gita is teaching Arjuna how to do right actions with the right attitude. Essentially, what the shloka is teaching us is we should stop being a warrior and become a warrior.
Join us today as we delve into very profound but super misunderstood concept of karmas. With Mr. Chakravarthy today, we are going to discuss how to decode an ancient principle like karma and use it to its fullest potential in our modern life. So, karma is a word which is so often used, but there are so many myths, misconception, confusion around this word. How do we really decode karma and understand its true nature?
Yeah, karma, what a fascinating topic. Karma can be very intriguing, no doubt, but it can also be very empowering. The word karma is possibly the most popular Sanskrit word that has got into English vocabulary.
Sure.
And possibly it is the most used, or should I say misused, Sanskrit word. The word karma conveys a sense of causality, something that connects our actions with the situations that we encounter in life. While karma cannot be defined precisely with one meaning, karma embodies a spectrum of related meanings. Broadly, we can look at karma conveying four important meanings. Number one, karma stands for action. Any action that we do, it basically means karma. Number two, reaction. The consequence of every action, the results. So karma also stands for reaction. Number three, karma stands for the system of cosmic accountability, a system that links all our actions with their reactions. It's the law that governs the correlation between a cause and its effect. Now, when we talk about cause and effect, we know that every effect has to have a cause and every cause has an effect. And the interesting thing here is the relationship need not be one-to-one. It can be many-to-one. One effect can have multiple causes, and it can be one-to-many. One cause can have multiple effects. So karma stands for the system, the law that governs this correlation between causes and consequences. And the fourth meaning for karma is fate, destiny. So therefore, when we say karma, it has to be understood as not just action or reaction. It has to be understood as the entire cycle of action and reaction. And we also need to understand that every action has a moral consequence, which manifests as either joy or sorrow. I do a good act, I experience happiness. I do a bad act, I experience sorrow. So karma essentially also captures this significant outcome of every action that we do, which is a moral consequence. And therefore, this law of karma is one of the significant laws of spirituality, which govern our life and living.
What we often see today is karma is more than a destiny that, as you said, karma is a destiny. I feel like people look at it as there is somebody in the universe called karma, and when somebody does something to you that you do not like, you try to, of course, respond back. But the minute you are, when you cannot no longer respond to it, you'll be like, karma will look after it. So why is it so often explained as there is a person or a unit or a government called karma that's going to look after the action that you could not deal with for yourself?
Exactly. Unfortunately, that's the misunderstanding that has seeped in, right? On the contrary, karma stands for a system of responsibility and accountability. You know, I am accountable for my actions. I have to take responsibility for everything that I do, because the consequences of everything that I do also belong to me. I have to experience the consequences, and therefore I have to be accountable.
But what we see is that when it comes to a discussion of karma, there is no accountability, there is no responsibility. In fact, they say karma is like a revenge, karma equals to revenge, is how often we see people explaining karma or understanding karma, first of all, that they understand karma equals to revenge and hardly accountability or responsibility. But then I also see a group of people who say we do not believe in karma. And they live a life, they walk a street thinking that because they do not believe in karma, they've got nothing to do with responsibility, accountability, or I don't even think that they were looking for revenge out of karma system. Or, no.
Yeah, interesting question, right? My belief or non-belief is actually irrelevant. When it comes to the physical laws that govern this universe, whether I believe in the law of gravity or not, the law of gravity governs the way I do all my physical actions.
Correct.
Just because I don't believe in it does not mean it stops working. If I touch fire, I will burn my fingers.
Yes.
If I try to walk on water, I will drown. So therefore, the law of gravity governs all my physical actions, whether I want to sit, walk, stand, and it is inescapable, it is precise, it is perfect, it is unwavering. Same is the case with the spiritual laws, like the law of karma. I may or may not understand it, I may or may not believe it, but the law of karma governs the lives of every living entity, and it is inescapable.
Then it explains why so many misconceptions or misunderstandings around this karma principle, because it is not visible, it is not seen, an unconscious, like somebody who is not self-aware or being conscious of what action or thoughts that they are practicing, they will never be able to understand.
True. It's like saying, if I don't go to school, then I don't study the law of gravity. But then I learn through experience. Experience teaches that there is a law that governs all my physical actions. Similarly, even if I don't study the law of karma, experience should teach me. And through experience, I must realize that there is this law that is actually governing everything that I do, and therefore I need to be accountable for what I do.
The law of karma has its system, as you explained. Whether you believe it or not, it still exists. What do you have to say when they say everything is predestined, it's pre-planned, it's going to happen? Because then that's completely contradicting to the law of karma.
Exactly. When I say everything is predestined, that statement itself is self-contradictory. It's like saying, I don't exist. To say I don't exist, first I have to exist.
Correct.
Or it's like saying, I can't speak a single word of English. I've already spoken 8 words.
Exactly.
The statement itself is self-contradictory. So when I say everything is predestined, it is self-contradictory because the very fact that we are able to make such a statement proves the exercise of what is called free will. And because there is free will, that is the reason why we are able to make choices, make decisions. Now, having said that, we need to agree that experience teaches that there are things which are beyond our control. Performance matters, individual effort matters, but then performance alone does not matter. There is something more than performance. We only need to ask sportsmen, and who will say that there is something which is beyond what we can even think of, something which is not within our control that determines results in addition to our own performance. So I will say individual effort is necessary and crucial, but not sufficient.
So something beyond human effort.
Something beyond human effort, which is what is destiny. I plan and I go to catch a train and somehow I get delayed. Then I end up going to the station and I find that the train also is delayed. On the other hand, there could be a situation where I go ahead of time and the schedule gets cancelled.
Yes.
There are things which are clearly beyond our control, and this is what is the fourth definition of karma, which is the destiny, the fate, which also plays a role.
When it comes to myth about karma, the first thing that comes in my mind is how is destiny related to karma? And there are a lot of people who do not believe in destiny. And as you said, you do not believe in karma, but a law of karma still exists. How do you explain destiny to these people then?
Yeah. So let me give a simple definition of destiny. Destiny is an aggregate of all reactions to our past actions
Correct.
delivered to us in accordance to a higher plan.
Correct.
So destiny, many a times, conversationally, is also understood as something that we are meant to achieve. People say we need to fulfill our destiny. In that sense, destiny is something where we use our God-given talents to do something worthwhile. That is fulfilling destiny. But destiny as fate is something which happens to us, which is what is not in our control. What happens to us, the situations that happen to us, the events that unfold, that destiny is something which cannot be changed.
And maybe that's why we often see a lot of people going to astrologers and this magic man because they think they can change their own destiny. But it's the karma that plans your destiny, correct?
So if you ask, can destiny be changed? The answer would be yes and no. Why it is yes? When destiny refers to what we are meant to achieve, our own actions, using our own God-given talents to achieve something worthwhile. From that sense, yes, destiny can be changed. But the answer no is when destiny refers to the situations that happen, that we encounter in life, which are products of our own past actions. Now, what we need to remember is destiny determines the consequences of our actions, not our actions.
Correct. And that's where the whole misconcept and understanding karma as a revenge, I think, started. So, to put down, destiny is under your control as long as you are thoughtful and accountable of action before doing those actions. And that's the only how you can control your own destiny.
Yes, so we are no doubt makers of our destiny, right? Now, we are also not masters of our destiny. Now, let's
Correct.
see this subtle difference here, makers versus masters. When we look at any result, any consequence, any situation, it is actually is a combination of three factors. Three factors come into play. This is what is called the phala in Sanskrit means result, fruit.
Okay.
The three factors that put together impact the phala, the result. The three factors are: one, karma, the action that you do; two, daiva, which is the destiny; three, kala, time. So mathematically, karma plus daiva plus kala is equal to phala. Now, what we need to clearly understand here is karma is what the action that we do, which is in our control. Daiva, destiny, the situations that unfold because of our past actions is not in our control.
Correct.
It's beyond our control.
Correct. When it will come, how it will come.
Correct. There is a third important factor that also needs to be taken into account: kala, time. Time here, it refers to how destiny or daiva manifests. Now, we cannot force nature. Nature takes its own course.
Correct.
Now, I sow a mango seed, I have to wait to relish the mango fruit.
Correct.
I do a good deed, I have to wait to experience the good consequence of the good deed. Nature takes its own course. The manifestation of the consequence of an action, the manifestation of even destiny, is controlled by kala, by time.
True.
So therefore, this formula of karma plus daiva plus kala is equal to phala clearly shows us two important things.
Then maybe because everyone cannot be the master of their karma and decide when and how the past done actions are going to come back as karma. Is it so that is the reason why a lot of people do not want to believe in karma? Is it very unsettling for them to accept just because they cannot control how the karma is going to result?
Yeah. Well, it can be unsettling if the focus is always on what we cannot control. It is a fact that the world, if we look at the world, there are many, many, many things that are beyond our control. The outer world is beyond our control, whereas the inner world is very much within our control. So it is all about a paradigm shift, a shift in our focus on what we can control, what we can change, and what we cannot control, what we cannot change. Let me give you a formula that is empowering. A simple formula. CAR. C-A-R. C. Change the changeable. A. Accept the unchangeable. Or remove yourself from the unacceptable. And when we have the wisdom to know the difference between the changeable and the unchangeable, and to recognize the unacceptable, then we are compliant with the law of karma and we do the right actions and the right results will ensue as a byproduct.
But we are so busy changing the outer world, which is so busy changing the other factors. If my husband behaves this way, I can do this. If my child behaves this way, if my colleague behaves this way, my performance would have been like this. Or I would, and most importantly, when it comes to getting angry or frustrated or, you know what I mean? So if because that person got angry, I had to get angry. I mean, he or she triggered me.
Yeah.
This is how we are always holding somebody else accountable for our action.
Very true, because we are always looking at what we cannot control and we are trying to gain control over something that whatever we do, we cannot. What others do is not in our control, but our response is very much in our control. Somebody else may trigger, but to be angry or not angry is a conscious choice that I can make.
But this clearly explains that we think that controlling outer factors are much easier than controlling us. And in a way, it is, because unless you are self aware and practicing consciousness, meditation, yoga, all the other things that we spoke in other session, because we do not have that kind of a lifestyle, we are not able to control our own feelings, our own temper, and we are just looking outside to change.
Yeah,
there.
I know. You talked of anger and how to control, master anger. There is a simple formula for that. A simple formula is, if the one who triggers you to makes you angry, if he happens to be your junior, right? Before you respond, just start counting from 1 to 10, and then you respond. If the one who's triggering that anger is somebody is your equal, then count between 1 to 50 before you respond. If that somebody happens to be your boss, then you count 1 to 100 before you respond.
There is no needed, because we often would get angry to the junior
And
in
if the one
comparison to somebody
and
who's
the
your
one who
senior.
triggers you happens to be your spouse, then keep counting.
Sorry. But the thing is that, we often get angry and express our anger where we know we can easily do so. We often would not do the same with our seniors, because then you know the consequences and you are aware of it. So, yeah, then again, we are aware most of the time, but the law of karma is not back of the mind all the time. Otherwise, it would have been the same for all.
True. You need to be consciously aware all the time.
Then this is like an entire cycle. What you do in the past comes back to you in the future. How does one get a control of the cycle? Where is where one feels freedom? Let's talk about that.
So for this, we need to little bit dive deeper into karma, which is threefold in nature. There is sanchita karma, there is prarabdha karma, and there is agami karma. What is sanchita karma? Sanchita karma is essentially the repository of all the karmas that you have accumulated over several lifetimes. Now, we need to look at this with a very expansive perspective. Look at the journey of life as a multi-life journey. And when we look at it, then we see the pattern of causes and effects falling in place. So sanchita is essentially a repository. It's like a loan that you have accumulated over several lifetimes. And then you have prarabdha. Prarabdha is the installment that you need to now, which is due now. So prarabdha defines your current life. Prarabdha shapes your current life. So that is something which you have to experience and exhaust in this very life. And then we have the third, which is the agami. Agami karma is the karma, that the actions that we do in this very current life, which then goes back to the accumulation, to sanchita. Whatever we do in this current life, we are also accumulating more karma. So therefore we see this is a cycle. It keeps going on and on. And any karma that we do will result in a karma phala, which is the result, and also a karma vasana. Vasana means fragrance, mental impressions. So when we do any action, there is also an invisible effect, which is the vasana, the impression that we make in mind. So when we say karmic baggage, we are actually carrying this baggage of vasanas with us, which essentially define the nature of our desires. Vasanas are like the seeds from which desires grow, and our life turns out to be a whirlpool of vasanas. This is the karmic cycle.
Correct.
Vasana, desire, mental agitations, actions, again leading to vasanas. So it's a vicious cycle. Therefore, we are all stuck. We are all stuck, imprisoned in this vicious cycle of karma, where our vasanas govern our life and living. We are programmed. We are programmed machines driven by our own strong likes and dislikes. And the only way that we can get freedom to come out of this programming and enjoy real happiness and fulfill our life's purpose is when we get out of this vicious cycle. Today we talk of freedom. And when we talk of freedom, we are talking about outer freedom. Obviously freedom is a very important value. All of us want to be free, and we all struggle to get free. But then we are always looking at freedom as something outer. While we have got outer freedom today, we can call ourselves free. We don't realize we are all still slaves. We are slaves to our own desires. We are slaves to our own vasanas, the impressions in our mind. And as long as we don't recognize this, we do not really enjoy and experience true freedom. We can get outer freedom, but we can still be stressed out. We can still be anxious. We can still be in a state of worry all the time, in a state of frustration, in a state of distraction all the time, not knowing what the purpose of life is all about, not able to experience our completeness, not able to have contentment and fulfillment in life, unless and until we recognize this cycle of karma at play, which is governing our lives. Unless we break this vicious cycle, the cycle of vasanas, desires, agitations in the mind, actions, which once again lead to accumulation of vasanas, unless we break the cycle, we cannot experience true freedom.
So living life fully aware and taking accountability of your actions will truly give you the freedom that one requires.
True. It is in recognizing that we have free will. When we recognize we have the free will, then one thing becomes clear. Even fate, destiny, is a product of our free will, because fate is a product of our past actions. And the past actions were done based on our free will. So therefore, we can conclude that fate is also in a way product of our free will. And if it is a product of our free will, then it cannot be stronger than our free will.
Correct. It should not be.
It should not be, because what created it is more stronger. So our free will, when it is properly exercised, we can overcome the force of fate and we can fulfill our destiny, which is achieving what we are meant to achieve, something worthwhile in this life.
Correct. So I guess the people who do not believe or do not want to believe in law of karma are super convinced by now. So now let's dwell further and discuss how knowing the law of karma, karma yoga, knowing the true sense of it, being aware and accountable, will help them in modern life.
So I talked about this vicious cycle of karma. Now, karma yoga is essentially transforming the vicious cycle into a virtuous cycle.
Correct.
Karma yoga is essentially the art and science of doing the right actions.
Correct.
So that you do not get trapped in this vicious
Yes.
cycle. Karma yoga, in a nutshell, is essentially contributory, selfless work that you do in alignment to a higher cause.
Yes.
Now let me take one of the anchor shlokas of the Gita to explain the key principles of Karma Yoga, which also help us to understand how do we break this vicious cycle of karma. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashihi nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. Krishna in the Gita is teaching Arjuna how to do right actions with the right attitude, skillful actions, successful actions, which breaks this vicious cycle of karma. So he starts off saying, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya. Essentially, the first principle here is renunciation of doership. This is what is called kartrutva tyaga. Recognizing that I am not the sole doer. nature is a co-doer. And every action that I do, there are several other factors working together. I always work in teams. In reality, there is no action that we do independently. So we need to recognize that I am a contributive doer, not a sole doer of anything. So kartrutva tyaga, offering all actions to God. That is essentially a principle which helps us overcoming the forces of this vicious cycle. Number one, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa. Do every action with the knowledge of how the law of karma functions. The knowledge of reality, constant awareness, use our intelligence to discriminate, constantly be watching out for the consequences of everything that we do. Be selfless and align, attach a higher cause to every action that we do. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashihi. Very important principle. Do every action without any expectation of the results. Now, immediately people start asking the questions, do results don't matter? Results do matter, but attachment to results is what causes the problem. Essentially, we need to recognize that results come after work. Goals are set before work. So we should not mistake results and goals. Goals we must set, but we must not attach ourselves to results, because results are beyond our control. There are several other factors.
Correct.
So worrying about something which is beyond our control is of no use, because we can keep worrying, but we cannot change the results. There are several factors that determine. Therefore, nirashihi. Do every action without attachment to the result, without expectation of the result. Nirmamaha. It's a very beautiful principle which teaches that we must renounce mindness. Acknowledge that in addition to me, there are several other factors that cause the result of every action that I do. I am not the only cause. The moment I start recognizing this, acknowledging this, I'm in a state of gratitude. There are several known and unknown people who are directly or indirectly contributing to my own success. And I start counting my blessings.
Correct.
Yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. Nirmamaha nirashihi nirmamaha yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. Nirashihi is not attached to the fruits. Nirmamaha is not attached to the actions. And yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. When we do this, we are devoid of fear, anxiety, any worries. Every action that we do is not rooted in worrying, rooted in anxiety. We are doing it truly free. Freedom from our fears, freedom from our anxieties, freedom from our worries. Essentially, what the shloka is teaching us is we should stop being a warrior and become a warrior, a spiritual warrior, where we fight against our inner demons, our inner enemies. We fight against our fears, and we take charge. We take responsibility for the actions that we do, and we do what is called Trivida Tyaga. Kartrutva Tyaga, Mamata Tyaga, Phala Tyaga. Tyaga means sacrifice, renunciation, do away with. Renouncing doership, renouncing attachment to one's action, renouncing attachment to the fruits of one's action. And when we do every action based on this threefold renunciation, taking responsibility for our action, then such an action becomes a liberating action. Such an action breaks this vicious cycle and gives us that opportunity to experience true freedom in life. And such an action becomes a very successful action.
So beautifully said. One, we need to live consciously, be aware and responsible of the actions that we are taking, and then try and get out of the cycle of repeating the same things and feel gratitude of what all you have achieved, what all you are able to do, and what all is available to us. And that's the true freedom we hope to receive and get. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.